are not journalists from the other side.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thabo.
Thank you. Minister, my name is Thabo Mukoni. I work for the Sunday Times. On the Northwest, you indicate that the IMC has been expanded. Can you just elaborate on the rationale behind the expansion of the IMC? To what extent is the situation dire in the Northwest? And the IMC report, I don't recall it being released to the public. Yes, there was a briefing, I think, last week, but the full report, can it be availed to us as the press? Thanks.
Bulelan, you're the next.
Hi, Minister. My name is Bulelani from SABC. I'm just trying to get to the practicalities of the Premier's office being one of the departments that is under the full administration. Now, in that event, following the resignation of Mr. Mahuma Bello, who do you appoint? You appoint a provincial person to run the department, or is it going to be a national person? I'm just trying to get a clarity on who's going to run that thing, given that it's under the full administration.
Just a second on that IMC report. We don't have it, so we don't... Oh, sorry, I apologize, Minister. My name's Hajra Marji. I work for Power 987. On the IMC report on the Northwest, there was a press conference, but we never got the report. The President went further yesterday to say that various municipalities in the province are at the brink of collapse. So just the detail in that regard we are unclear about. And then secondly, to ask you to take this hat off and put your other hat on, will the discussion around who should replace Mahuma Bello, is that urgent enough, and should we expect an outcome by Monday next week, given that there's a NEC?
Hi, Minister. Babalo Ndenza from Eyewitness News. Just on the Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill, just clarity, Minister, these amendments or changes to the Procedure Act, sexual offences going before courts after 2 decades, were these informed by these recent cases that we've seen in the media of people being sexually assaulted 2 decades ago, and has that movement of bringing these cases to the fore even after 10 years, for example, did that inform this decision? Thank you.
Hi, Minister Wendell from Reuters. Just on page 6, the convention, the amendment to the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material. Could you just tell us a little bit about what that entails? Are we looking at investing in physical infrastructure? My understanding is that most of the uranium and stuff is stored at Pelindaba. About 4 years ago, there was a break-in at Pelindaba. The security or lack of security at Pelindaba has been raised as a concern. I think, among others, by the IAEA. So I just want to find out a little bit more. Is this an investment in a new physical structure? Where is that structure going to be? Are you upgrading Pelindaba, etc., etc., etc.?
Good morning, Minister. My name is Joseph Musia from SABC. On the State Liability Amendment Bill, what is the rationale there? Are you, as Cabinet, saying South Africans who have been wronged by state hospitals are going to now receive reduced? Their claims are not gonna be reduced, or what's the issue here?
Thanks, Minister. Gay Davis, Eyewitness News. This new legislation, I mean, the approval of these bills is all very well, but the deadline for bills to arrive at Parliament, if they're to be processed before the end of this Parliament, was 30th of May. So presumably none of these bills are going to actually make that deadline, so they're not going to be processed until the new Parliament after the general elections next year. Your comment on that, because it seems to have taken an inordinate length of time for these bills to actually get here. And then the other question is on Israel. Surely Cabinet would have discussed the implications of downgrading the embassy in Tel Aviv. What was the discussion around that? Because I can't imagine that there would have been a discussion on Israel in Cabinet without that being reflected on, particularly given the extent of trade between South Africa and Israel as it stands. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for the questions. I'll try and take all the Northwest issues together. The party, the ANC, will consider 3 names, and those names will then be considered by the National Executive Committee, and that would be what the ANC will be looking at this coming weekend. And I'm sure we've had, because I don't want to blur the lines between ourselves and the party, yesterday's media brief, that is already something that is being processed by the organization. And it then responds to the very issue that you have asked about who appoints. The ANC will appoint the Premier, and we hope and believe that the ANC will appreciate the agency, and hence it will have to take advantage of its own meetings that are taking place this weekend. The expansion of the IMC, part of the reasons on the expansion of the IMC have to do with frontline service delivery. That in the course of interacting with the communities in the Northwest and the stakeholders, including government itself, there are issues that have actually emerged. For example, around housing, for example, around Sun City, and many other allegations that have been put. And all those allegations do require that there must be capacity that will be brought in coming from the relevant departments in government. And that is the rationale. We know that there are issues around the scholar transport. Yes, it may be located in the Department of Transport, but its impact on the Department of Basic Education and attendance and all those things, you definitely need to look at those kind of areas and see how best we can deal with it. The release of the report. The report is a form of work in progress. Secondly, the report has got allegations which some have not been tested, and hence work is continuing to happen. And it is on those bases that there will be continuous briefings. A report on the Northwest will be an exit report that then says, this is what happened, this is what we found, and this is what we have done. But for now, there will be these continuous updates, because what you have and what Cabinet has reflected on, it was based on the information that requires government to continue again doing further work. So there can't be tidbits and release of information that may have not been tested, and hence the reinforcement and the increase on the capacity with regard to the Northwest. There's also been an agreement in Cabinet that we have to also be sensitive such that we do not go out and brief everybody and leave the communities of the Northwest behind. They become a relevant body in this process, so that then they themselves can appreciate, can contribute, and most importantly, can realize that there is a lot of objectivity in the interventions that national government is actually doing, including, Hajra, what you were raising about the state of local government, which is something that primarily has to do with service delivery, and hence the need, therefore, to step in and deal with those municipalities beyond even what has been released by the AG, but more looking at the impact of the challenges on ordinary South Africans, which is what Cabinet also raised to say, having this kind of an IMTT, we must not just be all focused on the government of the Northwest and not appreciate the impact of both the challenges but also our interventions on the people of the Northwest. So that's why then you will not have a report every day, because there is no report that is conclusive yet. There is a report that says we need to remove this cap from here and let's bring in somebody to come in and deal with it. We need to act on A and B. Let's deal with those issues. We need to get more information from other affected people. Let's also encourage that. So it is an ongoing kind of an exercise. I remember also, even with the intervention of government in Limpopo, there was no report 2 weeks after the intervention. In fact, there was a close-out report led by the Department of Treasury, briefing the nation on what has been done after Limpopo was put there. So we will continue to update on developments and progress. A situational report will only be a report that helps us through the IMTT to make meaningful interventions. On the issues that have been raised around the amendment of the Criminal Procedure Act, in fact, it is not the current incidents. These incidents happened at a time when we were now responding and even borrowing from what has happened about more than 5-6 years ago, the Johannesburg South, the Gauteng South court judgment that exposed the gap in terms of our own laws, that we definitely have to deal with it. What it seeks to do is to also help the vulnerable who can't now, when they're abused, be in a position to speak for themselves, but upon them being independent and of age, can go out and say, my father raped me, or my neighbor raped me, or this happened, because at that time, even an adult, sometimes it may take you time before you break the silence, understanding where we're coming from as a nation. So it is that intervention, and it will then help the current developments, because now there will be a basis in terms of the law to prosecute for such crimes. And the thing around the handling of nuclear material, yes, it will require, even in the discussions in cabinet and cabinet committees, the issues were not just about investing in physical infrastructure. It was also about using advanced methods, use of advanced methods rather than obsolete kind of solutions that were there in Pelindaba, and hence it was easy to break in and all those things. And adaptation as well to new technology, training and skill and reskilling of our human resource, including the disposal methods, how you handle them. So it is much more inclusive. In actual fact, it takes us to a much more advanced level of handling things, given even the history of Pelindaba, how old it has been, and all those things, and the fact that there will be a continuous presence of nuclear material for medical purposes, for research, and therefore we need to also advance, because the sensitivity is centered around what the old legislation, how the act was actually framed. And now the call is for us to now make sure that we invest and we allow space for restructuring, reorganization, reskilling, and better investment on new technologies. The state, the issues around state liability, we know. I think the best teacher is what has happened with the road accident fund. But also with what is happening, there will forever be that compensation. There will forever be that compensation. What this seeks to do is to make sure that the consequences and issues of liability must be to the benefit of the victim, the patient. Secondly, it must come in different packages and not in just one form. There may be interventions that may say you shall now get medication to help you recover rather than just financial compensation. And secondly, you shall be assisted to be taken to a particular level so that then your health can actually be improved, other than just financial compensation and it being seen as a one-size-fits-all kind of a solution where monies are actually disposed, but not necessarily to the betterment of the patient's health. So it is that we're seeking to do. The deadline on the bills, these are the bills that in the time frames of Parliament, they've been put as those that were in the pipeline. So they are already in the pipeline. They will then fit into the parliamentary program. I know that there's already 17 that are in the NCOP, and these ones were already highlighted as those that are in the between Parliament and Cabinet. And once we have done this, they then get ticked in because already they are in the programming of this term of office. So they will not miss this term of office. They are already tagged for this particular term, unless the delays would be on the consultations and the interest that come and the concerns that will come through public participation in the parliamentary processes or Parliament itself. On Israel, we support, Cabinet agrees with the Minister of International Relations, and of importance, the discussions are going far beyond just the downgrading. It's also about economic relations, not only with regard to what is of benefit today at the expense of the lives of the people of Palestine. So it is a package that is all-inclusive, that includes also the lives of the people of Palestine and a permanent solution in Palestine. And amongst other things, that downgrading, Minister Sisulu will be briefing Parliament in the next sitting on other measures that South Africa must consider, but also on how we are going to do our bit in the United Nations and with the international community, not just on the side of solidarity, but also on the serious interventions that we believe have to be taken to bring peace and stability and realization of the two states in terms of Palestine and Israel. And also the thing that is quite important to register is that we really mean it. We mean it because we've had a life experience of living under the same conditions. And downgrading of an embassy against saving lives, we need to say what is the best that we can sacrifice.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think we've come to the end of the briefing. Thabo?
Northwest.
In your reply, Minister, you mentioned Sun City. I don't know. What's the issue there? I don't understand. I mean, Sun City is it's...
The reason why, and I know why you're asking, the reason why I was citing it is that as the team is working there, things emerge. And this is one thing that is before the team, and the team has to go and look at it, the same as the selling of the game farms and all those kind of things. Anything that has been disposed which could have been in the best interest of the state and being an asset of the state.
I think you'll be the last one.
Also on Northwest, I just want to know...
Oh. No. You
Why?
go and Babalo will come after.
Why were the 10 provincial departments placed under administration under different sections of the Constitution? And so in other words, what is the difference between the two? Thanks.
Yes, in fact, it's a rider on Filder's question specifically on the office of the Premier. What is the issue in that specific?
There's another hand at the point.
It's also linked to that one, Minister. The Premier department is the one that the national government is taking full administration. I understand that the ANC will have the 3 names and appoint that person, but in practical terms, would you agree with me to say that he will probably become a lame duck Premier, given that if we are putting it under full administration, then there should be an administrator from national. And that's why I was asking, can you just give us a sense of, also given the sense that we don't know how long you're going to be placing this department under administration. Next year there's election, so what is it going to do?
Yes. When a department or sphere of government is put under administration, there is nowhere where it says you shall dissolve the provincial executive, which is the provincial cabinet. And there will be issues that the team that has gone there to intervene have to regularize matters with the political establishment there. And that's what has happened even with the Limpopo experience. So it would not be necessarily a lame duck, because what it means is that there shall be provincial executive council meetings where the administrator, which would be the teams in the Northwest that have come to intervene, will have to come and regularize there for purposes of accountability, compliance with the Constitution, and good governance, where there must be a formal space of accounting and a formal space of authorization. So that's what will happen. Secondly, the issues around the office of the Premier have to do with some of the responsibilities that were taken away from departments and were then put under the office of the Premier, which are now going to be attended to because they are located in the office of the Premier. So those are some of the things like your project management responsibility and many other things that the IMTT can actually share on the specificities of what exactly is within the office of the Premier. So remember, there were those responsibilities that were taken from different departments and were put under the administration of the office of the Premier. So yes, there shall be a Premier. It will be a political process. It will not necessarily be a lame duck. In fact, it would be about making sure that there's political authority finally, because Dr. Dlamini Zuma will not be a pseudo-premier there, nor Dr. Mkhize, nor Mr. Nene, the minister. You do need a political establishment that must continue to to function. Secondly, the difference. The difference is that those that are going to be under Section 101B, is it 1B, where you take part of the authority, and those that are under 1A. What it means is that, one, there will be full investigation and total administration under the intervention team, particularly on the ones that we have mentioned, the four departments that are in the provincial government of the Northwest, which are the Department of Community Safety, the Department of Basic Education, Health and Public Works, and then the Office of the Premier. There it actually means there will be full takeover of the administration and the running of those departments and the office. And then on the other five, it would mean the intervention team will still work with those that are in the establishment there and give them the support, the advice, and most importantly, guide them on how to reposition those departments. And should there be any other thing, even with those ones, that would actually be attended to as and when it arises. On the first five, the first four and the Office of the Premier, it would be about taking over the full administration of those departments.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. I think we've come to the end of the briefing. Thanks, colleagues, for coming. Till 2 weeks from now.
Yes, please, honorable members of the media, see you at 2 when the President replies.
Just coming out there of that media briefing that has just been handed down by Nomvula Mokonyane on the state of affairs of what's been discussed in the cabinet, of course, talking on the issue of jobs as well as some other announcements that will be coming up in the next couple of days. Also mentioning some of the board changes that Pravin Gordhan had announced this morning with regards to SOEs. We take a short break.